You probably clicked on this video because you find yourself constantly thinking about food or fantasizing about your next meal, sometimes while you're in the middle of eating. And you might think that is a willpower problem. I'm Paris Soup. I'm a nutrition and fitness coach, and I've been doing this work for over a decade. And also, I have personally experienced food obsession and body dysmorphia over many years, but especially when I was doing fitness and figure competitions. So what's happening right now is actually a little bit more predictable and has little to do with discipline, including yours. When I was competing, I thought that my food obsessive thoughts were a character flaw. Like I wasn't working hard enough and I wasn't disciplined enough or strong enough. I kind of felt weak because I couldn't stop thinking about Nutella or anything. There was bad behaviors of watching Man versus Food, constantly, bookmarking all of the places I'm going to go and all of these meals and just thinking about it constantly. And it had very little to do with my discipline as it does with yours. The facts are that biology, we need fuel, and our brain is hardwired to want food and fuel, especially if we are dieting or under eating. And it's just hard for the brain and the body to perform. And it's hard for the brain to actually do the thing it's supposed to do when it's constantly occupied by the next meal. Sometimes I would be here, but I'm not here. Like I'm thinking about the food, but not even in a fun way. It just got to a point that it was like, it's different than like, ooh, I'm going to go get pizza on Friday. And the fact that it would be replaying in my head. So let's talk about that and how we can maybe not think about food all day and to reduce that food noise. Before we do, I just want to make a point that this video is talking about food noise and some disordered eating terms and just relationship with food. And we are not diving into an eating disorder. If you find yourself triggered or struggling, please seek support. And that part is out of my scope, but we want to dive in and have frank conversations about things that are affecting all of us. So there's a couple of terms I want to talk through with you. Honestly, the scarcity response. When you're dieting or under eating, your brain is seeking or seeing scarcity and then is making food a priority. You're not weak. Your brain's literally doing what it's supposed to be doing. And the scarcity is interesting because part of it comes with to our language. Why is it scarce? Is it because you want a particular dish from a particular town in a particular country that you're never going to go again? Or is it scarce because of labeling of something's good or bad and you're not allowed to have it because this is on the bad list? So that would be where the restrictions and the language, the labeling are really important. If you say something's off limits, you're making the obsession worse. It's just our human psychological response, which is fascinating. The restriction sort of takes over your whole body. So if this is good food and this is bad food, and also layered on that, there is value and worth attached. So I am worthy and I'm a good person if I follow these food rules meticulously. And if I slip, I've been bad and I'm a terrible person. I suck. That's so loaded. None of it's true, but that's where it's so important to have these conversations of like when people say eat healthy. Well, in what context? What's your relationship with food? Because having absolute restriction and then freaking out and binging for one person may not necessarily be healthy, but for one person having an ice cream sundae once a week, if it's off limits, it's still something that helps them actually stay on plan. So I share that because there's a few things I said. Let's review. So it's the language, for example, healthy eating. What is the purpose? What are we doing? And looking at if it's good food, bad food, or do we actually mean It is nutrient dense, nutrient light, low, high volume, calorie dense, calorie light. Let's try and use a little bit more accurate language. And certain things, for example, like clean eating or only eating things that you can pronounce are not scientifically or truly accurate. And they're just adding more confusion rather than clarity. That's where I want to wrap that point up. So, why else would you be thinking about food all day? Diet fatigue. The longer that you stay in, let's say, a deficit and you say, I'm dieting, well, the louder that noise gets. And quite literally, your hormones respond. So you have your leptin and ghrelin. Your ghrelin goes up, your leptin goes down, and your brain is working hard trying to find food. And it usually wants something that is a quick fuel source. So where it would perhaps go immediately to something a lot more hyper palatable, that is also a quick carb because it's fast and it's like, give me fuel, chocolate now. And then tied into all of that, we have the shame loop. The guilt kicks in, and then obsession leads to guilt. Then guilt leads to more restriction, and then you're mad at yourself, and there's a shame. It's a cycle, and it's really, really hard to break on your own. And when I say relationship with foods, it's really to reduce the shame and guilt, to make choices out of intention and education, to not look at things so black and white, and to understand the nuance of where certain things have different purposes. For example, chocolate or Skittles, certain food, something, for example, healthy, like potatoes, may not necessarily be applicable in a specific situation, like immediately pre-workout. So language clarifications are absolutely essential, because it's also how we speak to ourselves. So if we are in a loop, the self-talk is constantly talking about how much we suck, how much we can't have something. We continue this loop, and that is why we're in this food obsession and this food noise. So it takes some time to unravel, but there are specific things that we can do. And first and foremost, we want to make sure that we're not in a massive deficit, because if you're in a deficit, it's a lot harder to navigate some of the mental and language notes I just said. So you want to make sure you're eating enough for whatever your goals are. And then we start to pull the thread of what your language uses, the vocabulary that you're using, and to readjust that self-talk with nutrition. And if this feels really big, it's quite simple, but it's also layered. And this is one of the areas I really enjoy working with my clients with, to see how they start to hear their own voice. There were certain things, for example, that like a parent said when they were young, and they were like, oh, that's not actually my truth. But of course, like I said earlier in the video, if this crosses over to food obsession and potentially orthorexia and whatnot, please do seek a qualified professional. And it is an essential conversation when we're talking about athletes, as performance nutrition. Sure, eat enough, output in the gym. You're human beings. We're human beings. And we also want to eat for joy and for culture and for all of the above. And there's so much thrown in this industry that, like I said, I've personally been through, which is one of the reasons that I'm really, really passionate about these conversations, and very much like to challenge the narratives, not to just be contrarian, but because I find that it gives us that peace. And again, you're making a choice on purpose. If you don't want to eat something versus you think you can't, are different scenarios. And honestly, find this fascinating. And I am really grateful that you're here and listen to this video. If it was useful, please share with a friend and subscribe. I will be dropping more videos every week. Thank you.